Your daily dose of sports talk is here. Highlights, interviews, and analysis. From the entertainment capital of the world, SportsWrap with Jason Page starts now.
And we welcome you to it, this Thursday edition of the show. So much to do over the next 60 minutes on over 270 affiliates across the United States and Canada. Hello to our friends north of the border. We see you. Good to be with you. A whole menu of guests today on the show. We had Ryan Ballengee on the show yesterday from Golf News Net. There was an extended conversation that went beyond the limits of our time yesterday. You'll get part of that today, talking about Phil Mickelson, because that's sort of a cloud hanging over the sport right now. The latest allegations of sexual misconduct towards him, and also potential changes coming to the PGA Tour. We'll get to that as well with Ryan Ballengee from Golf News Net, my conversation with him that we had on yesterday's show. That's later on in the program. Dennis Bernstein will be here from thefourthperiod.com, SiriusXM NHL Radio. Get into it with him on the Stanley Cup final. Some thoughts with him as that is now over. Obviously, Carolina, Stanley Cup champs. What happens to Las Vegas? They made a coaching change. We'll get into all of that coming up a little later on as well. Sam Yarnell will be here in 10 minutes. We'll talk World Cup with him. Some NBA notes to get to later on in the show. And, of course, odds and ends. But we start things out, as we always do, on this Thursday edition of the show. It's time for the big story. And the big story is presented by The Daily Wrap. If you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Head over, scan the QR code right there. I made it easy for you. Take out your phone, scan the QR code below, and get our daily newsletter, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page daily newsletter. It's called The Daily Wrap. It's available on Substack. You can go directly to Substack too and get it there, but we would prefer you just to scan the QR code and get it there yourself. A daily thought, a daily newsletter based on the big topic of the day that we're talking about on the show. That's what you get with the Daily Wrap. And again, it's available there. You can also find it at sportswrap.tv. If you're looking for another way to interact with the show, that is the way to do it. The Daily Wrap from Substack. Go get it today. You know, one of the biggest stories in Major League Baseball this month hasn't been about Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, or the pennant races. It's been about hats. Yeah, Pride Night hats, and specifically the handful of players who chose not to wear them. The outrage has been predictable. Some fans want those players criticized, some want them punished, some have even questioned whether players who decline to participate should be allowed on the field during Pride Night. And as a gay man, I'm probably supposed to be angry about it. The truth is, I'm not. In fact, I think we're having the wrong conversation altogether. The Los Angeles Dodgers had players who chose not to wear their Pride Night caps, Blake Trine and Alex Call. We've also seen controversy in San Francisco where players wrote Bible verses on their Pride-themed hats, and Major League Baseball warned them not to do it. Now politicians are getting involved. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley is accusing Major League Baseball of targeting players for expressing their Christian faith. Everybody seems to be picking a side, but here's where I land. Leave the players alone. No, that doesn't mean I agree with them. It doesn't mean I support their decision. It simply means I'd rather know where people stand than create the illusion that everybody agrees, because they don't. Some people support LGBTQ rights. Some people don't. Some people honestly don't care one way or another. Why would baseball players be any different than the rest of society? I've seen people argue that every player should wear the hat because it sends a message of support and inclusion. I understand that argument, but I also think there's value in honesty. If wearing a rainbow logo on a baseball cap for one night during a season is something a player is unwilling to do, I'd rather know that than pretend otherwise. The goal shouldn't be forced compliance. The goal shouldn't be creating a false sense of security. The goal should be understanding where we actually are. And where we actually are is this. 29 of Major League Baseball's 30 teams now host Pride events. We see you, Texas. 29! Think about that for a second. Because some people, especially younger members of the LGBTQ community, have grown up in a world where that's normal. They've grown up in a world where acceptance is expected. That's a good thing. But many of them don't remember what things looked like before. I do. 26 years ago, I walked into a minor league baseball clubhouse to do my job. I wasn't out. Nobody knew anything about me, sans a few friends. And yet someone yelled across the room, "Fag in the locker room." Just like that, one sentence, one moment. I'll never forget. Not because the player knew I was gay. He didn't. Not because he was trying to make some grand political statement. Because he wasn't. It affected me because I knew exactly who he was talking about. People like me. The message was simple. You don't belong here. That moment pushed me further into the closet. In fact, it kept me there professionally for more than a decade. There were times I wondered where there was even a place for me, someone like me, in sports media. So when I hear people say baseball hasn't done enough, I understand your frustration. But I also understand perspective. 26 years ago, there was no such thing as Pride Nights. 26 years ago, there weren't Pride hats. 26 years ago, Major League Baseball wasn't openly celebrating their LGBTQ fans. Today, nearly every team in the sport does. That's not perfection, but it is progress, real progress. The fact that a handful of players don't want to wear a hat doesn't erase said progress. If anything, it reminds us why these conversations continue to happen. Now, could this eventually become a part of baseball's labor negotiations? Who knows? The Players Association's been largely silent so far. They have bigger issues on their plate with a CBA expiring after next season. But the fact that we're even asking that question tells you something about where baseball and America are right now. Because Pride Nights were never supposed to prove that everybody agrees. They were never supposed to guarantee unanimous support. They were meant to tell LGBTQ fans they belong. That's it. And as someone who once wondered if there was a place for me in this game, I don't need every player to wear the hat. I don't need every fan to agree with me. I don't need unanimous approval. I just need baseball to continue making it clear there's room in this sport for people like me. And compared to where we were 26 years ago, that is a message worth celebrating. And that's the big story. We're coming back. We got more to do on this Thursday edition of the show. We'll get into the soccer, the World Cup, which continues to thrill fans across the world. Seems like there's an upset every day in the World Cup. What was the upset on Wednesday? The big surprise on Wednesday? We'll talk about it. Sam Yarnell will be here when Sports Wrap continues. Welcome back to the show. I've had my say in the big story. A little different one today. Let's bring in Sam Yarnell and talk about the World Cup a little bit. Feels like every day there's been one upset, surprise, big story, at least one every day, which is good. If you're going to spread this thing out the way they are, my God. No, I'm cool with that. Let's talk about a couple of them yesterday. The Congo. How about the Congo? Who had the Congo on their scorecard, getting their first point ever with a draw against Portugal. And what made this most notable, Sam, was a lot of the reaction coming out of it about Cristiano Ronaldo. And now a lot of the conversation has started. Yeah, look, with some of the early performances we've seen in this tournament from guys like Messi, it certainly shines a light on some of the elder statesmen of the game right now, of which Ronaldo is certainly one. And a lot of people are starting to ask the question, is it time for Ronaldo to go to the bench? Not as in don't play at all, but as in to be a substitution later in the game as opposed to being a main feature from the opening minute of the game. And following yesterday's game, that rallying cry seemed to only get louder.
Yeah, it's a sad moment for Cristiano in his career, right? It is. And that's, what you're alluding to. It's what everybody's talking about. It is. It's sad when, like we talk about with, like I talked about earlier this season with the Golden State Warriors, right? Like we talked about earlier this season with the Houston Astros. It's a sad thing in sports when you have to see a dynasty die. And as unfortunate as it is for so many kids my age who grew up debating, oh, is Ronaldo the GOAT or is Messi the GOAT? That conversation's been put completely to rest over the course of the last 4 years. It started with Messi winning his World Cup, right? A feat that it looks like Ronaldo is never going to accomplish. And it continued, Jason, just earlier last week with Messi starting the title defense with a hat trick and Ronaldo drawing the Congo. It is unfortunate when we have to watch these kinds of things play out the way they are, but it is heartbreak happening in front of our very eyes with a man who many regarded for years as one of the greatest of all time being proven right to his face that he's no longer what we once thought he was, and he really never should have been in that conversation with Lionel to begin with.
And here's the thing, too. Portugal, and I just know this from having, watched the game yesterday and listening to the way people talk. The consensus is Portugal's deep. Portugal's got a heavy roster of talent. They're saying it might even be one of the most talented Portugal rosters that we've ever seen. And in that scenario, you wonder if it's going to be Ronaldo that goes, to the coach and says, all right, you know what, for the betterment of the team. That takes a lot. We just saw it in this, not to compare sports, but I will, because it's the easiest thing for me to do if I have to talk about soccer. Look at LeBron James, who changed his role within that Lakers team this year. And again, knowing where he was at this stage of his career, the kind of player he is, what that team needed, he was willing to be what that team needed as opposed to what his ego may have told him he should have been. And you wonder if Ronaldo has that gene in him.
Yeah, the problem is with LeBron, every year, no matter what team he's on, he's always surrounded by at least 3/5 of the starting roster is about half the guy's age. That's not the case with Portugal, right? And that is why this draw against the Congo was so disheartening and showed so many people that, it really is going to be a World Cup career wasted for Cristiano Ronaldo, because this really is Portugal's last shot. You mentioned they're deep, but the story behind their depth is the age of their depth, right? You've got Bruno and Bernardo both at 31. You've got Joao and Nelson Semedo in the back end, both in their 30s as well. This is not a team that, like for the majority of Cristiano's career, is full of spring chickens, is full of a bunch of young guys who are playing all throughout Europe and still young and in their primes. We're looking at an entire Portugal squad who almost top to bottom has their prime in the rear view, Jason. This is not good for Portugal, and a draw against Congo is just about as bad of a World Cup start as they could have had, especially with Ronaldo's stats in the match. Not a shot on target, not a dribble completed. It looks like Portugal have fallen apart at this point.
England doubled up Croatia 4-2. They got the fourth goal late in that game. But England gets the win there. They got a lot of shots and a lot of opportunities. I don't think the score was necessarily indicative of how well they actually played in that game. And you got to remember, this is a Croatia team that was just in the championship game a few years ago, Sam.
They got a lot to work on. England has a lot to work on.
I don't want to play England, though. I still don't want to play
This is a Croatia team that was in the championship a couple of World Cups ago. But that team was a lot different than this Croatia team. This Croatia team has half of the firepower of that team we're talking about, Rakitic, and all-time greats who were playing for the firepowers of Europe at the club level at that time. England blew 2 leads in this game.
Yeah, they did.
That is not acceptable if you're England. Jason, as much as we want to talk about coming into this tournament, it's coming home, No, it's not. You left people off the squad that freaking sent your country into an uproar. There's controversy around this entire squad headed into it. I lost a lot of confidence in England yesterday because I thought that if they came out and they stepped on the necks of Croatia and we were talking about them leading 3-0, it'd be a lot different of a story. But 2 blown leads, if you're England, that can't happen.
I gotta tell you, I don't lose confidence in any of these teams after one game, especially the first game. You're playing in a different country, a different environment. It's the first game. You're getting some of the jitters out. A lot of these teams are coming out flying. You've got a target on your back if you're some of these top teams that are expected to compete for, if not win the World Cup. I don't lose my mind after one game, especially if it's a win. Because in a win, if you don't play well, you have teachable moments if you're a coach. If you lose a game, now you've got a lot of negative sentiment there that you have to deal with on top of trying to sort of rebuild the confidence of your team. I'm not going to worry as much about some of these teams that win games, especially in the first game. Just my thought on it.
Yeah, as much as we talk about, as much as we talked leading into the tournament about how much of a disaster this World Cup is, this is where all of it being as much of a disaster as it is really going to play in. Because, yes, you're super far from home. And yes, maybe you want to write off that first game. But, Jason, at the same time, I'd say you probably got to write off all the group stage games and all the knockout stage games again at that point. Because this is the most World Cup travel that these individual clubs have ever had in the history of the World Cup.
Dennis Bernstein talks hockey, recaps the Stanley Cup final, and a couple of big coaching changes around the league. That's next. Welcome back to this Thursday edition of the show. This guy has been busy. The one and only Dennis Bernstein. TheFourthPeriod.com series coming off the Stanley Cup final. And Dennis, everybody started this series. I want to get a couple quick thoughts from you on this series and what it means, and then move into a couple things that are already happening in this offseason. But, this Stanley Cup began. It was 2-1 Vegas. Everybody's going crazy after Game 3. Great, this is going to be the greatest Stanley Cup ever. And then it was ho-hum, 3 in a row Carolina playing Carolina hockey. And, the Brandon Bussey experience with him coming in Game 3 and shining throughout the rest of the series. Frederick Hu and Carter Hart struggling in net, and John Tortorella not really willing to make a move in that regard. When you take it all in now, a few days after it's ended, what stands out to you from this Stanley Cup final?
Final system over stars. Jordan Staal scored 9 goals, 8 goals, was the Conn Smythe winner. Right now, and all the star players for Vegas, the end of the road, didn't show up. Mitch Moore had a spectacular game, a signature game in Game 3. Didn't see him for the rest of the playoffs. Jack Eichel had 2 goals in the playoffs. Mark Stone, now we learned that Mark Stone has a torn adductor muscle, so no wonder he couldn't play great, right? Exactly. So the injury, the William Karlsson injury. So, but with respect to that, you can't minimize what Carolina did. You really can't, right? So it was just a spectacular team that stuck to their guns when they were down in the series. Right? They didn't change their identity. They got to their identity, which was what you saw in Game 5 and Game 6. And by Game 6, Jason, I was in the building for games. Vegas was out of gas. I think emotionally, physically, they weren't the better team. And you thought, hey, 2-1 at home, you think they're going to win the Cup final? And it just went a different direction, but the best team won. You saw a situation where maybe not the best group of players, but the best team certainly won.
What does this all mean? How do you judge this season? Obviously for Carolina, a great success. Yeah. But how do you judge this season if you're Vegas? You barely get into the playoffs. You fire your head coach. You bring in Torts. You go on this magical run. You beat Colorado. Sure. And then it kind of, falls apart after Game 3. How do you grade this season, and what do you do in the offseason if you're Vegas?
What's your lens? That's my question, Jason. If your lens is Game 60, where this team didn't look like they're going to make the playoffs, then it was a success. Like if I had told you Cup final when the playoff started, you would say success. Up 2-1, you don't win, you lose 3 straight, not a success. But let's take this lens all the way back. I've been to Stanley Cup final, I think, 12 years in a row. The last 9 seasons, the Cup's been awarded in Vegas 3 times. Now, unfortunately for Vegas fans, the other team got it twice. But you get to a Cup final in this era 3 times out of 9, it's a success. So I can't see how you can look. The ultimate goal was a failure. This season was not a failure. Now the question is, they parted with Torts. Torts wanted to come back, which was a surprise, and they didn't want it back. So I'm a bit of a WWE fan, so you could say this is all scripted, that Ryan Craig, who was coaching their minor league team in Henderson, in the AHL, was destined to be the guy no matter what happened with Torts, even if he won. Because Vegas likes to do the unpopular thing. They don't care about perception. They don't care about social media. They don't care about, the perception. So I think on the lens of it, it was a successful season because Torch came in, was tasked with a job. He got them out of a hole. He got them to within 2 wins of a Stanley Cup final. I don't know how you can say that season's not a success.
You think Torch just kind of rides it out and does something similar to this next year?
Yeah, probably. He still wants to coach, Jason. He wanted to coach that team. Now, if he sees another situation where it's paralleled, where another team might be like, I know there was some chatter about Jared Bednar in Colorado because they haven't made a cup final. They've only made one with that great team. So maybe that team stutters out of the game. Maybe he's an option for Colorado. That's pure speculation on my behalf, right? But yeah, he'll be a shark swimming in the water, and there's a team that has the expectations of being a contender that's underachieving at game 40 midseason next season. Could he jump back in? Absolutely, he could.
What do you make of the decision to go to Ryan Craig? He was, as you said, he was sort of the heir apparent here. What makes him the right fit here, and why does this move make sense for them?
I think it's familiarity. I think it's comfort. I think they believe they have a team that can win with any coach. And this is a guy who knows the system. And knows there's some players coming through the pipeline. So it's a safe play is what it is. And it's a guy who's...
But this isn't an organization, but let me interrupt you. This isn't an organization that necessarily does the safe play. So in that regard, is it sort of counterintuitive to what this organization would typically do?
It is, but they must identify something in Ryan Craig that says, okay, this is along the path of the type of coach we need to win. It's as simple as that. And he's probably a little bit of a controllable coach because he did come through the system. Torts, he's a loose cannon sometimes. Right? And you look at the way the team got fined and lost a draft pick because they didn't want to show up at the media availability after they won in Anaheim. Maybe they didn't want that as well. They didn't want to keep losing draft picks and the like. Torch was the right guy at the right time. It's as simple as that. Bruce Cassidy's message had worn thin. He graded against the players. We know that's what happens when he stays too long. He won a Stanley Cup there. Torch did the job they needed, the right guy at the right time. They believe Ryan Craig over the longest stretch of time is the right one. But you're right, it's not a reactionary move. And now you question the team that does all these reactionary moves because they don't make a reactionary move. So I get it. It's not they're usually in their DNA.
Jim Hiller to Toronto. You know him pretty well from his time with the Kings. So give me a thought on sort of how this move is being viewed both here in the States and up in Toronto.
Oh, I think John Straka said they talked to like 50 people, and then I think yesterday he paired it down to 25 people. I have a tough time believing this is the best candidate of 25 people. Because Toronto's issue isn't making the playoffs. It's winning in the playoffs. Jim Hiller's record in the playoffs, 2-8. And I became famous with Jim Hiller because I questioned his decision-making about protecting leads after Game 3 a couple seasons ago. Good luck with the Toronto media. I know he's coached there before as an assistant. But Jason, when they say that, it's very different when you're an assistant and you never face the media and you are the head coach and you have a losing streak in the preseason for 2 games and there's 20 guys with microphones asking you why you've lost 2 preseason games in a row. It's they had Craig Berube, who's a guy from the gut. He coaches from the gut. Jim's more of a teacher. So, Jim will go to the whiteboard on the ice. Berube will get in your face and go, why didn't you compete hard enough?
Right.
It's a very different style of coach. They think he can raise the level. Based on what I saw in Los Angeles, I'm not sure he can do that.
Dennis Bernstein does a great job. TheFourthPeriod.com, SiriusXM NHL Radio. I got a couple other questions I'm going to ask him. We'll have that on the YouTube channel, so go and check it out there. Dennis, appreciate you, my friend.
It was a pleasure for time. Thanks, Jay.
Welcome back to the show. Ryan Ballingy had some interesting things to say yesterday, our golf guy over at Golf News Net, about Phil Mickelson. The conversation took place, but you didn't see it, even though we had him on the show yesterday. You'll see it coming up in a few minutes, because that's sort of the latest black cloud hanging over the sport of golf, is sort of the dying of the legacy, the death of the legacy of Phil Mickelson. So you'll hear from Ryan Ballingy in his own words on that coming up as the U.S. Open gets started on Thursday. You have to see the conditions the opening tee shot of the entire tournament was played in. I'll have that coming up for you as well. All right, Knicks celebrating, Sam Yarnell. It is a championship celebration fit for the world champions, which apparently is offensive to some when you say that the Knicks are world champions because, well, there's a basketball world championship. World champions of what? Shut up, you dope. They're the world champions. They're the best team in the world. Nobody else is beating them, Sam Yarnell.
Oh, my gosh. All right, full transparency, as Jason and I are recording this, it is the hours leading up to the parade, and I am just getting live updates from people who are in the city right now.
Oh, no.
It is a disaster. A disaster may be an understatement. It is going horribly in New York City right now.
All right, what's going on? If you're going to do
they've already, Jason, so, okay, full transparency, breaking the fourth wall completely here. It's 9 a.m. right now on the dot. It is 9 a.m. in the morning, and an hour ago, they stopped letting people in. At 7:30, they stopped letting people into the viewing area for the parade.
Why is that a bad thing? Why is that a bad thing? If there's too many people, I mean...
No, 100%. It's a disaster because they've planned the parade route through the financial district. It's not going by Central Park at all. Why are you having a parade in New York and you're not going by Central Park? What are we doing here, people? What? Get everybody into Central Park. Do you know how many human beings could fit in that massive space of land? Get a bunch of people into Central Park.
But it's a parade.
Way they do it in Boston.
But it's a parade. A parade has to go down the Canyon of Heroes. It's got to go down Broadway. It's got to go. It doesn't just sit in Central Park. That'd be boring. That's not a parade. That's a gathering. Trae Young opting for free agency. The news coming out yesterday. Turning down like a $49 million option or something like that. So he's going to become a free agent, which opens up room for your Washington Wizards.
Well, yeah, Jason. So the end of the report is that the Wizards are actually the favorites to land him in free agency. Windhorse fingers. Now, why would that be? I'll tell you this, Michael Winger and and Will Dawkins, you are not getting paid enough money to run that front office, man. They are playing 6D chess. Everyone else is out here, they're just playing checkers and stuff, and the Wizards are out here playing 6D chess. Jason, if you'll remember back to the day that the Wizards traded for Trae Young, and then again, we had the same conversation the day that they traded for Anthony Davis. I said something very, very important about how this offseason, quite frankly, would play out for Washington. I said, I didn't expect Anthony Davis to be on the team. Jury's still out on that. But I said I was going to be really, really surprised if Trae Young opted into that player option. Jason, this is an incredible move by Washington. They somehow convinced him. And honestly, I'll say this. A lot of thanks is probably due to Jalen Brunson. We'll call a spade a spade. A lot of thanks in this is probably due to Jalen Brunson. But the Wizards took full advantage. They got Trae Young to opt out. They are the favorites, obviously, to land him in the free agent market on what I think a lot of people in the basketball community at least, are assuming is going to be a much more team-friendly deal, spaced out over more time so that Trae Young ends up with more money and the Wizards end up paying less money against the cap every year. And it'll give the Wizards, in addition to having whoever they use in that first overall pick, whether it be Darren Peterson or AJ Dybonsa, it'll give them the freedom to go out and sign a big-name free agent. It'll give them the freedom to go out and make a big trade. Jason, the Wizards are ready to contend, and this is yet another move that shows you that.
All right. Sam Yarnell, Wizards fan number one. Fans watching us on Masson feel I guess, invigorated by this news. Invigorated. Yeah, made up a word. It's okay. Feel invigorated by the fact that your Wizards are making all the right moves. James Dolan, Knicks owner, says he's not going to the second apron. Not going to pay whatever it takes to keep this championship group together, Sam. And frankly, I don't disagree with him because I think regardless of whether they could bring back this exact same team next year, which is going to be difficult to do given some of the restrictions they have. And I still don't think in that scenario, they're still the fourth best team in the NBA when you start talking about championship contenders for next year. So I don't have a problem with Dolan doing this. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, he's being cheap. He's a billionaire. The Knicks are worth $1 zillion. I don't have a problem with it, Sam.
Yeah. So, couple of things here. No one is going into the second apron. There's been one team in
Cavaliers.
NBA history since the second apron was introduced that has gone into the second apron. It was the Cleveland Cavaliers this past year. Look at how that worked out. Ugh. What I will say about James Dolan, in classic James Dolan fashion, flying too close to the sun here. The Knicks are the closest team besides the Cleveland Cavaliers to the second apron right now. What he's probably saying, as unfortunate as this is for Knicks fans, I'm just being a James Dolan realist and telling you what the guy's saying that he's told you for, however long he's owned the Knicks at this point. He's going to tear it down. Something's getting torn down. It's not going to look like the same team next year. This is him saying he's going to create money somewhere.
I don't think they're tearing it down. The starting five is staying exactly intact because they're all under contract. So I don't think he's tearing anything down. I mean, he's got Mitchell. What they've got to deal with is Mitchell Robinson, Landry Shamet, and I forget. There's one other player whose name isn't coming to me that's going to be up in free agency that they're going to have to figure out. We're coming back. You want to hear what Ryan Ballingy has to say about Phil Mickelson and the fall of his legacy next. Welcome back to the show. U.S. Open, opening round on Thursday. Ryan Ballingy of Golf News Net joined us on the show on Wednesday to preview the Open. We had an extended conversation. I want to give you the second part of that now. Talking about Phil Mickelson and potential changes coming to the PGA Tour. In the case of Mickelson, it's the sad ending to a long, illustrious career. Has any guy who had more goodwill equity stored done more to squander it than Phil Mickelson?
In golf? No.
No
way. Think about what he did 8 years ago at Shinnecock, where he hit a moving putt back toward the cup one. Was that 13th hole?
Yeah.
Intentionally tried to embarrass the USGA. He tried to defend it. Well, you guys can't be up in arms about this. I mean, that was kind of the start of a more public awareness of how his heel turn, of his turn to being a guy who's kind of a know-it-all, hell-bent on trying to embarrass the people that he doesn't like or the decisions he doesn't like. I mean, he had been doing stuff like this for a long time, but not to that quite level. And then, you have that. Okay, well, then you go and recruit for LIV. You basically are the founding father of LIV Golf. Mm-hmm. You can't even defend the PGA Championship you won at the age of 51 because everyone hated you so much for that decision. And then now the stuff that came out with Golf Digest about him being removed as a member from a San Diego club because he inappropriately and unwantedly touched a female staffer at the club, and she reported it, and they removed him from the golf course while he was playing and removed him as a member. That's how big of a deal that was. So his exemption's over. That his run as a guy that's exempt into any of the majors is over because he's not playing this year. He's played once this year, and he's maintained that he's trying to help a family member through a health issue. We don't know about that, and I'm not going to speculate about that, but all the other stuff to the side has basically destroyed his reputation in golf.
If LIV went away, could you see him being either wanting to go play the Champions Tour or being wanted on the Champions Tour?
No and no. I mean,
wow.
I don't think he wants to play competitive golf anymore. I think he's doing this to fulfill a LIV Golf contract that paid him an exorbitant sum of money to get this thing off the ground. And he's done his damage in golf. He tried the Champions Tour. I think he won 3 events, at least the 2 back-to-back. I mean, right away, very quickly, very easy for him. But that was when he was 50. He's 56 now. It's a different world for him. You only have a certain kind of runway on the Champions Tour before age starts to catch up with you.
So you don't think he cares? So you don't think he cares? You don't think he cares about the fact that he is the villain now, that he's the heel? You think he's almost like going to lean into it? Like, this is it? This is the rest? This is it for Phil the rest of the way?
I just don't know what he can do to change that. What can he do?
But does he even want to?
Right. Even if he wanted to try to fix it, what can he do that would repair or even start to repair his reputation? Is it give all of the LIV money to a children's hospital?
He ain't doing that.
Something to that kind of level. Maybe that's it. But that's probably about all he's got available to him to kind of do some exorbitant, over the top kind of gesture. And even then, I think people would still go, yeah, but ... all this other stuff. I think there really isn't a road back to kind of polite golf circles for him, unless, there's something I can't even think of that he could do to kind of get back into people's hearts.
One last thing before I let you go. These changes that are supposedly coming to the PGA Tour, we've heard about. What is this all about for people that aren't in the know?
So the CEO, Brian Rolapp, wants to negotiate a new media rights deal because he wants to get out in front of the NFL renegotiating their deal because they're going to get the vast majority of sports rights money. So he wants to come to the networks with a package that looks more appealing than having, some not so great events and some great events. He wants all the great events in one package that goes to these network partners in NBC and CBS. And so his idea, at least as it's sort of been relayed, is they are going to have 2 tiers of PGA Tour events, which we kind of already have already, right? We have tier 1, which is the signature events, the playoff events, the 4 majors, which the PGA Tour doesn't control, but they're effectively that. And then the Players Championship. That's tier 1 as far as they're concerned. And that's, 17 events, right? And then they want to have a tier 2, which is basically a little bit larger, 20 to 23 events. But those events will not have tier 1 players in them. They will pretty much all be relegated to cable, which I find kind of foolish because cable TV is kind of a medium in flux these days, putting it kindly. And they want to drastically reduce the purses for those events from anywhere from $8.5 to $10 million these days to about $4 million, right? The tier 1 events will have 120 players in it. So the best of the best. Tier 2 will somehow have 140 players in it, but none of the tier 1 players are going to be allowed to play in the tier 2 events. And I think there's a lot of pushback on both those notions because players who are used to competing for, $8, $9, $10 million if you have a PGA Tour card are all of a sudden going to be asked to play for less money than they play for in the FedEx Cup Fall, which sounds bananas to me. And I think Rory McIlroy started the pushback on this ahead of the U.S. Open, saying, really what happened here, the creation of signature events in this tier, it happened because of Live Golf. Well, Live Golf is going away as we know it. It may still exist, but it's going away as we know it. And so in that case, maybe going back to the way things were, where everything was more or less the same, is a better idea than having these distinct tiers where you have pretty much a middle ground between the Korn Ferry Tour and the top players on the tier 1, whatever you're going to call that, and kind of destroy a series of events that have been stalwarts of the PGA Tour because they won't be allowed to compete for the best players to come into their tournaments.
We'll wrap it up with odds and ends next. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Thursday. Before we say goodbye, though, a few reminders. Sports Wrap with Jason Page, the podcast version of the show. Listen to us in glorious, crystal clear audio. Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon. Anywhere you get a podcast, you can listen to this show. I'm sure there's some out there that I missed. I can't name them all. Not working off a prompter. Also, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. If you haven't checked this out yet, it is the place for all things Sports Wrap with Jason Page. The Monday through Friday TV version of the show is there. 45 minutes, commercial free, no commercials at all. That makes it worth watching unto itself. If you're looking for another way to watch the show, do that. Sports Wrap Originals are there. Sports Wrap Shorts are there. Extended content. We have conversations that sometimes are too long for the television show. We push them onto YouTube, and you can watch them there. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Subscribe today. Also, the brand new Sports Wrap website, sportswrap.tv is the address. Go and check this out. Everything related to the show is there. You can check out the latest Sports Wrap shorts, the podcast, the daily Substack, the daily wrap, which you can go and subscribe to there. You want to find your affiliate. Where's the show airing? What time is it on? Go over, check it out. on the SportsWrap website, sportswrap.tv. I promise you will not regret it. We got a merch store that we're building over there as well. You'll be able to get mugs and T-shirts and polos and things like that. So you'll want to go check that out as well. We're going to make Sam model them, I think. And without any further delay on this Thursday edition of the show, it's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. By the way, are you open? Can I get you to model? Can I get you to?
Sure.
We'll do a whole runway thing. It'll be fantastic.
I'll have to run it by my modeling agent, but we'll see. I'm sure we can get a deal worked out.
I'm sure we can get a deal worked out as well. Major League Baseball. This is a bizarre story, and I almost had to do a double take on it because I felt like something out of The Onion. Tigers outfielder Wensiel Perez, and this is the way it's going for the Tigers this year, injured in a freak accident when he was hit in the face by a resistance band in the training room following Tuesday's game against the Astros, Sam Yarnell. What's the weirdest way you've ever been hurt, Sam? Can you think of the weirdest way you've ever been injured? I once threw out my back sneezing. That's about the weirdest thing that I think I've ever hurt myself doing. I always remember, was Danny Tartable or Jesse Barfield for the Yankees hurt himself coming out of a hot tub and was lost for much of the season. There's been some weird ones over the years. This one's pretty close to the top of the list, though.
The craziest thing, and I was trying to, as Jason was reading the story, I was like, wait, this sounds so familiar. We saw this happen 8 months ago in Big Four Sports.
Really?
This is the same thing that happened to Anthony Richardson. This is the exact same thing that happened to Anthony Richardson that, if you'll remember back to when Daniel Jones got injured and everyone was like, why aren't they turning to Anthony Richardson? Is because he had fractured his orbital bone because a resistance band snapped. These resistance band companies, someone's got to do something with these resistance band companies. What are we doing here, people? We're breaking people's eyes left and right. Weird. If I had a dime for every time a professional athlete who's not very good, quite frankly, Wensiel Perez hitting 180 this year, Anthony Richardson, well, we've all seen that. If I had a dime for every time a professional athlete who's not very good at their sport broke their face with a resistance band, I'd have 2 dimes, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. To answer your question, weirdest injury that I ever had while I was playing baseball in college, it was summer and I was visiting my grandmother one time. I was at my grandmother's house and she asked me to go grab something for her. And I ran up she asked me to go get something on a different floor of the house for her. And I ran up the stairs to get something. And at the top of the stairs on the landing, there was a rug that didn't have the little mat under it. It wasn't anchored anyway. So I planted on the rug and my foot slipped out from under me and I really messed up my sciatica. I absolutely messed up my lower back. It was not good.
The Dodgers, Shohei Ohtani battling blisters, 6 innings, 7 hits, 4 earned. His ERA up to 1.47. Dodgers, though, do beat Tampa Bay 5-4 yesterday. We were talking about the Cy Young stuff with our friend David Ardsma yesterday, and he thinks it's going to be hard to catch Mizorowski because Mizorowski's already sort of built the narrative so far this season, so he's going to have to come back to the pack because he's already sort of at the top of the list. Ohtani didn't help himself yesterday at all, giving up 4 earned in that start. But Dodgers win again. They are 48-27 on the year, Sam.
Yeah, June 17th, giving up 4 runs and now moving his Cy Young number to 55-1. Yeah, give me that guy who started his season with a .73 ERA through his first 10 starts. What's so funny, and I love having these conversations in June because so many people are so prisoner to the moment. This incredible 8-start stretch that Jacob Mizorowski is on, it's wonderful, it's great. His numbers are the exact same as Shohei Ohtani's were at the beginning of the season, and right now Shohei Ohtani's numbers are better than Mizorowski's were at the beginning of the season. So I'm still confused on why the narrative, I'm not confused actually, but I understand why the narrative has completely pushed itself towards Mizorowski with recency bias, but I don't think it's apt, right? I do think that this is going to shorten itself, especially when we get into the later months.
Our time management sucked today. We got to go. Thanks to Dennis Bernstein, Sam Yarnell, Ryan Ballingy. We'll see you all back here for a Friday Sports Wrap. Bye-bye.